Nearly at the halfway point of the league stage of IPL 2023. No one's running away with it at the top, but the Sunrisers Hyderabad and the Delhi Capitals are in fear of the rest of the league running away from them as they come up against each other in 2 games now, back to back. They play each other today in Hyderabad, and in 6 days' time, they'll take the same flight and play each other in Delhi. They find themselves adrift of the rest of the league, and these are 4 very valuable points to potentially keep their season alive. So we look forward to this one, that 9 plays 10 on Tendulkar's birthday. This is Visit Saudi presents ESPNcricinfo T20 Timeout. Tom Moody and Shaun Tait contributed to about 700 of the 25,000 runs that Tendulkar scored in his career, and that is a rare introduction that I'll give them. They had far greater achievements than that. Good evening to you, Tom.
Good evening. Is that all through misfields you're talking about? Or?
I would think so. The Australian team that you played in was so poor in the field. Yeah. But I don't have the exact number because we don't have ball-by-ball data for when Tom Moody played Sachin early on in Sachin's career. And that's just that's not reflecting on how long it's been since you played, Tom. It's just that we don't have the skills. Yeah, you got him in a World Cup quarterfinal.
And that was about it. The rest of mine was misfields and sixes and fours and everything else as well. And managed to somehow get a feather.
Yeah, this is a bit of a very important day in our part of the world. I hope you two appreciate that. It's almost celebrated like a holiday or like a national day.
I played a game at this ground at Rajasthan, and the entire match stopped, and we were sort of wondering what was going on. Then on the big screen, it flashed up. It's Sachin's birthday. Yeah. Everyone had to stop and sort of give it respect, which was extraordinary, I thought.
Yeah. Ever got that anywhere in Adelaide?
No, I never. No, I missed my birthday.
Yeah. Sometimes when I'm at home over my birthday, you know, everyone, the family stops for a moment and reflects and brings out a cake or something. Yeah.
That's exactly what Tendulkar is to us. He's part of the family. So the cricket family just stops for a moment and celebrates the great man's birthday. And it's a big one. He turns 50. There's plenty of coverage. Enjoy yourselves reading that and watching some videos that we put together as well. It's a very happy birthday to Sachin Tendulkar on behalf of everyone here at Visit Saudi presents ESPNcricinfo T20 Timeout. Now, we focus on the game, and I wonder what, I love that the league throws these kind of fixtures at a time when the points table has relevance to it. You wouldn't have thought that match 34, Sunrisers Delhi, would be 9v10, and then they play each other back to back, which happens for the odd team in these fixtures. I'm just thinking if that changes the nature of the team talk. Let's say today if Sunrisers had to play Chennai or Delhi had to play Gujarat, who are looking good, or Rajasthan, it would be a different team talk. Suddenly you look at someone who's closer to you on the table and you feel a little better about yourself?
Yeah, possibly. I think both teams will really understand the importance of this game because, you know, stepping on someone that's underneath you to lift you is I suppose easier than trying to step on someone that's way above you. So, you know, both teams will know that confidence is shaky in both camps. But, you know, you would have thought after Delhi's win, even though they stumbled over the line at the end there, they will be going to this away fixture with confidence because Sunrisers are yet to really nail it at home. They've lost a couple of games there, so you know that's important too. Is sort of feeling comfortable with a win. It's all well and good being home and with familiar surroundings, but you know having a few wins at home is important.
Yeah, I mean Sanjay was with us in the last Delhi game, wasn't it? When he said Delhi is one of the few teams where a win would have reduced their confidence.
Yeah, typical Sanjay. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But it's also a test area, I'm guessing, for 2 foreign captains. They come up against each other, and this isn't a space a foreign captain, any captain, but more so a foreign captain would want to be in, where you are worried a bit about whether you have all the dressing room together. You're not quite sure of your team. We'll bring out some numbers on Delhi. They've changed and chopped and changed quite a bit. They're going in without Prithvi Shaw today. Even if you've come at the back of a win, it's a tough challenge for both Markram and Warner.
It is. I was just watching the team talk before off screen, and Markram was quite an extended chat as well that Aiden was doing. I was sort of wondering what he might be talking about in this situation. So, and how many guys are actually listening as well. Sometimes at this stage of the tournament, you get a few wandering eyes and ears. But you know, I think it's going to be a good learning curve for him as a younger captain, whereas David's sort of the other side. He's been there and done it all and captained Hyderabad successfully. So interesting, both at different ends of at times of their careers as captain.
We are, of course, seeing a great reception as the IPL goes back to multiple venues in India. MS Dhoni is commanding that, but quite the roar for David Warner, who acknowledges this former home crowd of his, and they do love him there, don't they, Tom?
Yeah, they do, and so they should really, because he's been such a successful player for the Sunrisers, and particularly at Hyderabad. He's got an unbelievable record, as the numbers that are up there showing that's the case. And it's interesting to see KL Rahul's numbers there. It's in Dubai, is also impressive. But look, he's been such a dominant figure there, and has carried that team over a journey where it had to be rebuilt after the Sunrisers took over from Deccan Chargers. It was a depleted squad, and David Warner was part of that rebuild. Not in the very first year, but we picked him up in the auction purely because Delhi didn't write to match him, which we were surprised. We pushed, and then we had the final bid on David Warner. And we're expecting Delhi to say right to match, because I think back then you had, at least 2 right to matches up your sleeve in that auction. And we thought, he's going to go back to Delhi, but no, they passed. So, Hyderabad benefited, with that situation.
It's been one of the hallmarks of Delhi over the years to let go.
Yeah, well, they're very good at
really
letting
good players.
There's been a couple. AB de Villiers is probably one of them. And
Andre Russell. Glenn Maxwell was there. Josh Butler was there. I think the list goes on for a while.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's a different side now. It's a different season. But let's get into teams and toss news in a little while from now. Of course, the toss news is important. David Warner's decided he wants to bat first, and seems like the weekend seems to have influenced him. We've had 4 wins by the teams batting first over the doubleheader weekend. We understand it in the afternoon games. We're seeing more and more teams manage to defend either an excessive score or even something that's about par or even at times below par on the nature of the surface. So are we now seeing a significant shift? We always thought at what point will teams want to back themselves batting first? Will that be a reflection of how surfaces are? But does that surprise you, Warner's decision to win the toss and bat?
Well, he clearly thinks there's no dew, and we haven't really had dew influence any game so far this IPL, which is great, because there's nothing worse than sort of having that that real point of difference between the 2 innings. But in saying that, the day games are such a different contrast to the night games that I don't think you can draw a comparison to those two, because it seems like the surface does play differently during the day than it does at night time. I would have thought batting, historically, put it this way, at Hyderabad, batting, it doesn't get harder. If anything, it gets easier in the second innings. So yes. I think he just feels scoreboard pressure is the only way to go. Positive he's just grabbing the bull by the horns and saying, right, okay, we're going to go for that. It's exactly what he did in 2016 in the final against RCB. Most people expected us to bowl first, but his gut was telling, no, let's bat first.
Now that was, of course, a strong team, but in your experience, these 2 teams are both struggling with their batters firing. They're a good-looking bowling side. They've got some strength. When there's an underconfident batting side, do they just prefer batting first? We saw how Delhi stumbled their way in a chase against Kolkata.
I think, maybe a little bit of that. Maybe, David's come into a little bit of better form, I suppose, as well. So him personally opening the batting, a positive approach against his old team. They've changed Prithvi by the sound of it as well. So, I think it probably suits the game and suits the spot they're in. And I think Moods is right what he says about David going with his gut, and I think he just likes to assert himself on games, and again, a positive decision, I suppose.
And there we have it. David Warner's carrying this team. There were a few questionable half-centuries early on that weren't resulting in wins, and David Warner didn't look like in the nick that we expect him to, but we saw a different Warner, and it turns out that half-century against KKR was vital. Without him, that you never know what would have happened in that chase of just about 130 out against the Kolkata Knight Riders. But the big news is Prithvi Shaw has been dropped. We're wondering if they'd give him a long rope. This comes at the back of a win. So I guess we go to this because it's a significant story. Prithvi Shaw is a big player for them, retained player for them. He's been misfiring, and now he's been dropped. Do you understand, agree with the decision?
I don't have a problem with it at all. I probably would have pulled the trigger the game before, which I did talk about, I think, in one of the packages that we did on Delhi and their woes after they were 5-zip. I just feel, regardless of who you are, 5 games is a generous offering And just the way he was getting out and what he was contributing, because it wasn't if he was contributing in any other part of the game. It's not like he's one of your gun fielders or he's going to bowl an over or two. He's solely an impact batter, full stop. And we saw him in the impact sub bench on a few occasions. So to me, there's a time that, you know, to shift your fortunes collectively as a team, and also the turning point for possibly him by sitting him out. May not be for long, it may be for 1 or 2 games, but maybe just the recipe that's required to get him back on track.
He's getting out early as well. It wasn't as if he was sort of, you know, getting out in the 6th, 7th, 8th. He was getting out early doors. It was, you know, first over, second over. So it's, I think it's a good decision as well.
When you have multiple batters misfiring, though, does it sometimes feel a bit unfair almost to drop one of them? You know what he's capable of.
It does, but I just think those top 3 batters in T20 cricket are so important. If you're getting runs out of those guys, you know, the orange cap holders are usually the guys at the top of the order. You need them to make runs. It's and opening, you know, arguably the most important position.
Yeah. The other point is who you get in, and it looks like Sarfaraz has been brought in now. Yasto likes to open. They've given him a few gigs in the middle of the order. Now he finds himself out. Ripal Patel comes in for Lalit Yadav as well in a different kind of all-round option that they may want to go with in this game, and they can always have the option of bringing in Lalit Yadav with his off spin if they think that's the way to go. But we expect Mukesh Kumar to be the seamer once the impact sub is activated in the second half. He brought in Sarfaraz Khan, who clearly wouldn't be the highest on confidence with starting a couple of games, being left out, and then you come back. Looking at the options that they have, does it make sense after a win? I understand when you said you would have pulled the trigger last game, but once you've won, isn't that the best time to stick with the same team?
Not particularly. I think you get a sense of, you know, how someone is behaving around training, how they're behaving around the hotel, you know, how their confidence is in general social settings. And clearly, you know, Prithvi Shaw is showing other signs that, you know, he's not quite, you know, himself. He's down on confidence, not just what you're seeing out in the middle, but just in general. So sometimes the best time to make those adjustments is, you know, when you do have a win. You know, and that's sometimes the best time from a coach's perspective also to come down quite firm on a group after you've had a win. You know, in areas that you feel that, you know, we can step up significantly. It's all too easy when you lose and stand up on your soapbox and rant. No one's listening then because everyone's hurting. It's not like, you know, no one hurts when you lose. Everyone hurts. Sometimes the best time for these things is when you win.
I'm guessing it also allows Phil Salt to now bat at the top of the order with David Warner. And as we now look at that team, it'll see, you could say, maybe at least 4 or 5 batters who either aren't in really poor form. We're waiting for Mitch Marsh to fire, but Manish Pandey's got some runs. Akshar Patel's got runs. So I guess with one less batter who's out of form there, that still makes it look like a more formidable team.
Yeah, it looks healthy. It looks all right. And that top 3, obviously, a lot of experience there and some big hitting. And I like Manish personally down 5 or 6. That's where I think, you know, he's made runs in the past at 3. I think now at this stage of his career, that number 5 area is more for him. So I reckon it looks a decent order.
All right. And as we just look at how Delhi views their impact subs, it makes for a conversation given where they are on the table. I know we've discussed this before, but I'm just trying to think of Prithvi Shaw, the character, of which lots has been written and said, Tom. You've not worked with him directly, but we do hear he's the kind of player that needs a lot of managing or needs a good sort of leadership group around him. This point of him being used as the default impact sub when they chase, not fielding and then being brought in to open, do you sense it's played its part in his slump and form?
I don't think it helps, and it's interesting because we've just started to see teams try to bring their impact sub into the game if they are that batter, you know, with a few overs to go, so they can at least get the rhythm of the game. But at the end of the day, if you're a liability in the field, if you're not an asset, you can't expect to be, you know, thrown into, you know, a critical situation at a critical time, because every single run is so important. So maybe this is, you know, whether it be Prithvi Shaw or whether it be any other player out there, a young player out there, you've got to recognise that, you know, you don't want to be that impact sub purely because you want to be that person that, no, we need him out there because he's a gun fielder. We've seen the Raidus and the Mishras and these, sort of older players be used effectively as an impact sub. We've also seen injured players used effectively, but as a young player, you don't want to be that person with the bib on.
Yeah. It's been interesting that some teams have decided to almost show us their hand before the game, that this will be our impact sub, and not look to change things looking at the situation of the game. But let's have a look at the Sunrisers team as well. They've got some questions of their own, and as it turns out, they've made a subtle enough change. We were hearing from the captain that Nitish Reddy might be playing, but it again looks like the captains are a bit confused with their batting 11 and bowling 11. We also saw Mayank Dagar being given a cap before the game, and he's back on the impact bench. He did play in their last game against CSK, and he did bowl 3 overs, but this is again just adding to the confusion. It looks like an unchanged team by the looks of it.
So we did see him get given his cap.
Yes.
And you know what I reckon's happened is that they didn't have the cap available for him, and they didn't do it last game.
So it's a belated cap.
It's a belated cap, which underlines the shambles.
And to make it worse, it was Brian Lara's cap, I think. He took his off and gave it to him and said, just put that on for now.
But it's, whatever it was, but it just, it takes away the importance of that moment.
Yeah.
The whole idea of a cap presentation, whether you're a 50-year-old institution, a 100-year-old institution, or like Sunrisers, they've been in the competition for 8 years?
Yeah, 8, 9 years, yeah.
The significance is really important, and your number player that you are for that side, and that cap is a part of history, and that is a footprint in the history of that franchise.
It's sloppy, yeah.
I mean, Dagar was the impact sub brought in the second innings in the last game as a spinner. So could it be that they weren't sure if he'll play? And then in that case, do you really have the time to have a ceremonious
that's a good point. That's a really good point. Yeah, that's possibly the case, and they're backtracking because they weren't expecting.
Yeah, but would you expect it over the next match day, or would you have just done it sort of
after the game,
on that day?
Yeah, possibly. But then again, it's more often than not done in that sort of huddle, isn't it? Pre-game,
pre-match.
But it's an interesting one. It's this new world we're living in with impact subs. You can't sort of do things as you used to do it in the past.
Yeah. All right. Well, it's a new sort of setup we're getting used to, but it looks a little clumsy regardless. It's nice that they've given Mayank Dagar a cap. He may or may not feature today, looking at their bench. Maybe he is the pre-decided impact sub as well, but they are batting first, so we'll see how things go. Now, if he is playing, it is an indication of more spin in this tournament. Mayank Dagar bowled 3 overs of left-arm spin, and we are seeing a significant use of spin at this near halfway point in this year's tournament. We thought it would be a nice chat with Tom and Tait to figure why are teams resorting more to spin? Has the new rule benefited? Have the conditions allowed for it? Let's just have a look at the amount of spin that's been bowled by various teams so far, and we do see a significant increase when it comes to how the teams have used it. Kolkata are right up there, Rajasthan are up there, Lucknow as well, and these are teams that are relying on not 2 but maybe 3 spinners at times. Now, Matt Roller broke it down for us. Let's just have a look at his insight at this stage.
We're very nearly at the halfway mark of IPL 2023, and spin has played a major role in the first half of the tournament. Established international spinners like Rashid Khan, R. Ashwin and Yuzi Chahal have had a major impact on the first half of the season. But there have also been spinners who maybe we wouldn't have expected to play such a big role, who have been really effective for their respective franchises. Think of players like Piyush Chawla, Mayank Markanday and Suyash Sharma, the KKR leg spinner. As we can see from the numbers on screen, captains have been more willing to throw the ball to their spinners this season compared to last. If we compare the numbers at the same stage of both seasons, spinners have bowled more overs this season, have taken more wickets and have done so at a lower average. And perhaps in part that's due to the fact that we're playing a full home and away schedule this year compared to last season, when the entirety of the league stage was hosted in the same state of Maharashtra. You'll also notice from the numbers on screen that the economy rate of spinners has actually been pretty similar last year, despite the fact that their average has dropped. Perhaps in part this is due to when spinners are bowling. If we can see these numbers on screen, we'll notice that there's been a slight increase in the amount of spin used both in the power play and in the middle overs, but the biggest increase appears to have been at the death, which is generally the time when batters are looking to attack, but we've seen spin at the death be used as a tactic by several captains as the season has worn on. Generally, the second half of an IPL season is when spinners come into play even more. The weather heats up, the pitches dry out, and teams are generally using pitches at their home venue for the second or even third time, meaning they're dry, used, and offer a bit of turn. So, will we continue to see spin be as effective in the second half of the season as it was in the first? And what do the guys in the studio think is behind this general trend?
All right, thank you very much to Matt, and I can confirm we have paid the ransom, so Matt will be released wherever he did that from for us. He's in Bangalore watching the games, so hopefully he's being released to watch those. But I wonder what you make of it. First thought on why we're seeing more spin this year, Tom?
I think the impact player is one of the reasons. I think the second reason is we've had an overwhelming number of domestic and international injuries of pace bowlers.
Yes.
So therefore, you look for your best bowling option, and it doesn't necessarily need to be like for like, you know. Just because a pace bowler is injured doesn't mean a pace bowler has to come into the playing 11. You just want someone to be able to bowl in that phase effectively. And I think it's also a reflection of the quality of spin that's potentially available versus the quality of pace that's available. So when you get at the selection table, you're thinking, well, I'm better off playing the third spinner in my playing 11 against playing that extra seamer that really is unproven or is a higher risk.
Yeah, we saw those numbers. Kolkata right up there. They've played Surya Sharma in addition to Narayan and Chakravarti. Rajasthan have taken a punt on Adam Zampa at times, in addition to Chahal and Ashwin, who are gun 8-over spin bowlers. Lucknow have had Amit Mishra often in those black soil surfaces, and we know how much MS loves his spinners. Theekshana, Jadeja, Moeen Ali, and even Mitch Santner before Theekshana was available. You got Punjab in the top 6 too. Tom makes an interesting point on the quality of pace. I'm just trying to think of whether that's a trend that we're also seeing, that the depths of fast bowling in T20 aren't quite there. If you miss a top cream of Bumrah, Archer, Mark Wood plays and doesn't play, Prasidh Krishna, then after that, it's not like there are so many fast bowling options.
Obviously, I think that the schedule, international schedule, will have something to do with the top guys being injured. The calendar's so congested. There was stuff written about the ECB obviously having a big part of Jofra Archer and Ben Stokes and these guys. So obviously they've got to be mindful of that. Workloads, Mark Wood sort of in and out a bit as well. And I think I think you look at the teams in the list there. It's Kolkata, Chennai are up there, and Lucknow. Those wickets are spin friendly, I suppose you could say. So that's obviously got a fair bit to do with it as well. But from the fast bowling point of view, I think it's just a congested calendar, whether it's domestic or international. It's obviously taken a bit of a toll on some of the quicks,
Yeah, do you also sense that we had this chat about last year, I think, during the IPL, Tom, on how rich India's fast bowling reserves have become. And now all of a sudden, you're not quite sure. We were just thinking of a fast bowling lineup for the World Test Championship, and we were worried a bit about who plays after Siraj and Shami with no Bumrah. There's no Mohsin Khan this year. Mukesh Chaudhary's been ruled out. Khalil's picked up injuries. All of a sudden, has the depth quickly just been exposed? And now we're suddenly seeing teams go for spinners. It's not as rich or deep as we thought it was last year.
Yeah, look, it's an interesting one because I think the depth is there, but it's unproven and untested. We haven't seen a lot of those players get opportunity in the Indian setup purely because likes of Siraj and Mohammad Shami have had a mortgage on those positions in nearly all 3 formats. You then have your other pace bowlers like Umesh Yadav. You've got Bhuvaneshwar Kumar. Chahar is another one that has gone missing because of injury. So they're there, but they're sort of in and out of the side with injuries and also with selection and sentiment. I also think what plays a significant role both with the bowling side of things in the IPL and the batting side of things, both domestically and internationally. Now with 10 teams, I think the talent pool is being stretched. So with the talent pool being stretched, we're then seeing teams having to find different ways to get the best 20 overs, and that's why I think the the quality of what's on offer with spin is a better option at the moment. And spinners have evolved as well. They've learnt how to bowl in those closing overs.
Sure. Are we in an unlucky year? I throw Deepak Chahar's name into that as well. Lots of seamers. Shardul Thakur has picked up an injury.
Yeah.
Are we in an unlucky year, and this is a one-off? Or I know this is subject you'd be interested in because you've coached a national side. Or are we now going to see fast bowlers just being injured way more often than we used to?
Yeah, but, you mentioned when I was with Pakistan, so that by the end of my tenure, when it came to the Test series, we lost most of our frontline quicks with injury. So it was the same there. It was just a heavy workload. It was pretty much as simple as that. And then the swapping between...
Teddy, we are seeing bowlers who don't play as much also get injured.
Yeah, sometimes there's a case where you can't explain too much. But at the end of the day, the workload and then chopping between... with Pakistan, we went straight from a T20 tournament. 1 week later, we're in a test series. So trying to get bowlers' workloads up and all that sort of thing is difficult. And then 3 of the guys broke down. So that's just an example of what's...
England and Australia go work so hard on their workload. It's not like it yields a lot of results. They missed their best seamers for the T20 World Cup, even though they won it. Mitchell Starc wasn't fit for the India series over here. We know how he likes to very carefully manage his workload, doesn't play IPL. So somewhere, someone still hasn't figured this out. Fair enough.
I think the most significant change over the last decade in international cricket and franchise cricket for professionals is sports science. I think sports science has now got its hands well and truly wrapped around the game, and what we're seeing is a lot of players be nursed through situations and withdrawn from situations where prior to that 10 years, or well back in the days of your Kapil Devs and your Dennis Lillys and your Bob Willises and your Imran Khans and Michael Holdings and so on and so forth, yeah, they had a niggle, but a bit stiff today or a bit sore today, they just got on with it. Yes, okay, there's an argument, there's a lot more cricket played today. But then again, when you draw the numbers up on the number of overs that some of those bowlers were bowling back then, that was pretty much the same. I think it's nearly we're treating players because of what we're seeing, the images are giving us, the MRI scans and all this stuff. So against just sort of, let's work through this. And I don't think bowlers bowl enough now. I think they spend too much time in the gym and not enough time bowling.
I couldn't agree more. And my short time, the last couple of years of a bit of bowling coaching, I think there's a big lack of bowlers having a say on their own stuff as well. It's completely handled by exterior stuff, exterior people. I just think a bit more of a say on their own careers and how their body's going as well, making their own decisions, because medical team have a job to do, and they also, in some ways, with all due respect, they're also looking out for what the decisions they have to make are important, and it's their job as well. So if they're looking at a fast bowler and they're like, okay, he looks like he's a chance of being injured by the data, I've got to make a decision on my job whether he should play or not. So that's a bit of an issue for mine,
All right, fascinating conversation. Big thank you, Shaun Tait and Tom Moody. I know it perhaps have digressed from the game itself, but it is telling. These are deeper conversations that go well beyond an IPL game with 9v10. No disrespect, we're going to have a good one here because they're very close to each other. And it looks like the change at the top of the order has not worked for the Capitals. Bhuvneshwar Kumar is always a threat. He's got a good record against David Warner. He's dismissed Phil Salt in this one already. So with that in mind, let me ask Tom Moody and Shaun Tait for a first innings score. It's not started well for Delhi. How much do you think they'll get, Tom?
I think, given that we've just seen that little nick off and the ball swinging for Boovy, I've sort of dropped 20 runs. I'm going to say 166.
We see a lot more pace if it's going to swing like that today. 166.
165 was in my mind, but I can't do that.
Why can't you?
I'll go 172.
Wow.
But we take no notice of what I say with predictions.
True. Yeah. Good luck if you're going to find a few Delhi batters to get them to 172. All right. Moving for the Sunrisers, 130, which doesn't confirm.
130, okay.
130, yeah. Let's just kill it, the game. And we'll have a good game. Thank you to Tom Moody and Shaun Tait. Plenty more from them as we continue our conversation around this game on Visit Saudi presents ESPNcricinfo T20 timeouts. Do have a look at the mobile app. Head to the App Store and Play Store if you don't have it already. This is a big game for both teams. Their IPL hopes are effectively on the line in this one and the next when they play each other. We'll see how many Delhi have got at the end of the innings. To see you then.